Welcome everybody to another episode brought to you by the Organic and Regenerative Investment Co-operative. Our theme is how do you start an organic farming movement from scratch. We are interviewing the movers and shakers in the organic industry, and we have one of them right now. Frank Harney is an organic broadacre farmer. Frank, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure, Sammy. Good to see you.
You too, mate. And we try to get you out in a paddock to show that you really are a farmer, but I don't think the internet allows that out where you are. Is that right?
Unfortunately, Telstra are having a bit of fun at the moment, so I think we'd struggle to hold the signal. But anyway, I am on the farm, you can be sure of that. So we just had to come up near the house where the only place we get phone service.
Well, we'll take your word for it, Frank. We might get some photos and integrate it to make people realise.
I can reach over and grab a handful of compost to show you.
Well, that's something to talk about. So let's get cracking, Frank. I've got a lot of questions. It's great to have our first farmer on this interview series. You're the reason why we exist, to support people like you, Frank. So want to learn why you're into organic farming and how you go about doing it, and hopefully we can inspire some more people to get farming, and also people to invest to support people like you. So first question, Frank, we've been asking everyone, what is your passion and what makes you get up in the morning?
I just love growing stuff and making compost, watching plants grow. My passion is just to make things grow. I love making things grow and healthily as well. So it's an exciting time, actually. I've come from the big unorganic world, and there's not much money in doing that. And now seeing the way I can do it now, it's just, instead of wanting you to stay in bed because you don't want to get on a boom spray, now you want to get out and get at it because you know you don't have to go near the boom spray.
That is brilliant. And so that idea of organic farming, Frank, where did that come from? What do you love about it, and how come you're in this space?
Yeah, I'm a bit unique, Sam, in that we probably got into this space slightly by default through the drought years, where the big conventional system, I was big broad acre, and I mean big acres, and with big acres conventionally comes big costs and the big full banks, and when you have 4 to 7 years of drought in a row where you don't strip a grain or grow a blade of hay, you suddenly find you've got the bank on your back. So we came about it by not having any money, which allowed the 3 years to elapse, and then got introduced to it by a couple of dairy farmers and realised that, hell, this isn't a bad thing. It's actually it's gone past probably the warm and fuzzies and become an economically viable way of farming. And when you really start getting into it, you realise that, well, shit, we were doing this 20 years ago successfully enough, and we've been lured and coerced by the big chemical companies and fertiliser companies into, the only way we'll feed the world is with fertiliser and chemical. Well, I think that's a bit of false economy, and once you realise, and even if you eat your own veggies off the back veranda off my own compost, you realise how much nicer they are. So I come from a slightly different bent, as I wasn't organic up until 5 or 6 years ago, and now I'm probably more passionate than some that are already in it.
I reckon it's a really interesting story, your journey, Frank, because I grew up where you live now, in a similar sort of area, and the idea of organic farming was just never in the language of the region at all when I was growing up. So to know you're into that space is really, really interesting, and to know you've
but
come
it's probably still not too talked about either. I mean, I'm the only one within a fair radius of here, but there is plenty of people watching what I'm doing. Don't worry about that.
I love the angle, and we'll unpack that a bit more, Frank, but I just want to go a bit more philosophical with you before we get into some details about your farming. So we're talking about this, how to create an organic farming movement. What, from your point of view, from the farmer's point of view, what are some thoughts on how do we go about creating this movement of good organic farming?
I think we've more it's a bit of a double non-entendre, more mainstream farmers to do it, because there is that perception that it's the warm and fuzzies and only small. The ones that are doing it in a big way, it can be done in a bigger, broad acre way on the more low commodity, low value commodity crops like your wheat and your barleys. Like it can be done, and that's from where I see come from. But as far as the movement's there on the consumer side. There's no doubt there's a demand there. I think we just got to educate more farmers that it is a sustainable method of farming. That will be the first step, I think.
And is it the worry of doing it at scale? Is that the thing? Have we been able to get that solution for doing it at the broad acre that really does bring the efficiencies of a scale, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that 3-year withholding period, so to speak, is what probably deters a lot, because they go, well, hell, a lot can change in 3 years in farming. So that, I think, holds a lot back. I don't have an answer to how we overcome that, obviously, but
I think that's it. It's about it's just about showing people it feels like that this is possible and it's really financially viable, which we're going to unpack in some of the questions as well, Frank. I think you're on the money. It's around those farmers and convincing them that this is more of a economic solution for them rather than feel good and lose money. It's not that story.
That's right, because a lot of the old ones, it was almost farming by default. They were organic because they just didn't do anything. Whereas we want to try and marry what we've learned already and bring some of that technology and, even GPS technology for inter-row weeding, for example. So utilise some of that technology that that's out there to work. I mean, weeds is basically, I think, the single biggest issue we've got to combat with, and I think any other organic farmer would agree. Whether it's by mulching or mechanical weeding or everything you look at. So the better and the more use, even drones and even autonomous farming, I think it'd be a big play. If you could just send a machine out to read between the rows, well, hell's bells, that's gonna revolutionise the job.
It's coming, Frank. When people watch this on YouTube in 5 years' time, they'll be going, "Oh, that's pretty old school, having the robots out there." It's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Mate, I want to unpack a bit more. Give me some numbers. Give me some geographical locations. Where do you farm? And give us the size and the type of farming that you do.
So we've got a bit of Telstra malfunction there, but can you still hear me? Yeah, we're basically right in central Victoria, almost smack bang in the middle of a triangle between Bendigo, Echuca and Shepparton. The compost yard's here at Elmore, and one of our major blocks is part way towards Shepparton, a little town called Co-op, where there's 800 acres there that we grow oat and hay, which is obviously done partly for weed control, wheat, and this year we'll finally dabble into the dangerous world of legumes for a crop. We'll probably do a canola and pea mix or whatever, so the canola will create the cover crop to keep the weeds out, and then we'll clean them apart. So we're dabbling in a few things like that. We're looking at some steaming technology that we've brought in from America on the big balers to steam weeds. So yeah, all our management's pretty much based around weed control, because obviously we're back to working the ground a bit, which is not our preferred option, but at the moment we're doing that. But because having our own supply of compost, every time we cultivate a paddock, we add a ton of compost, so the crops could get up to 7 or 8 tons of compost, which is a bit of a privilege from my side of things. But that should start to build our organic matter, and if we're going to have a little political dig, if the government ever gets its act together, and which I don't think it ever will, it'll just do more chest pounding. But and we get the carbon credit side of things, and that would be also a great way of encouraging farmers. Even if they didn't go organic, it encourages farmers to farm more regeneratively. And then the next step from that is they go, well, shit, I don't have to do much more to go organic and pick up a few extra premiums.
Love the way you're talking, Frank, but I want to unpack for the audience some of the things you talked about there. So you're heavy into compost, this is my understanding. So I want to get you to unpack what compost is and how you make it, and then why you're doing it. So my understanding is around using that to help encourage the building of organic matter, specifically carbon in the soil, because that means you get more nutrients being retained, so you need less fertilizers, plus it helps you to retain water. Is that the story? And unpack how it all works.
That's it in a nutshell. The statistic, for every 1% of carbon you increase in your soil, you store 147,000 litres extra of water. So if, without being a cynic or being a panic merchant, I mean, the weather is changing. So if we are going to get a bit warmer, well, the more carbon we've got in the soil to store moisture and keep the soil moisture down, I think that singly alone, if Australia built its carbon up by 1%, we'd sequester all. It'd be the next biggest Australian export, or import of money, whichever way you word that. Because it's a perfect way to sequester the carbon, whether it be, again, political or warm and fuzzy. It's just a logical fact that if you increase carbon, you get better soil production, get better crop production. So to do that, we have taken on contracts with some of the big waste companies in Melbourne, bringing Melbourne's green waste out. So they've got a problem that goes into landfill, or we solve it by then turning it into an agricultural ready product to put back into the soil. So we compost it on for 12 weeks, mature it, screen it, make sure it meets all licensing regulations and pathogen-free, weed-free. Then we do sell that, and we've got it organically certified. So that's available, and plus we use a lot of it ourselves as a nutrient source, a carbon increasing source, and basically, fertilising the crop now is the least of our problems.
That's brilliant. So you keep going, Frank.
So the composting process basically is get it into a windrow, keep it above that 55 to 60 degrees. They say in the handbook for 3 consecutive days. Well, shit, we'd have it at that temperature for 10 weeks or 7 to 8 weeks, and then so it builds up from when it arrives. You maintain it at a high level, turn it several times, keep it aerating it, and the moisture level's right. Then it cools off in the last 10 to 12 weeks when it's ready, and away we go. So that helps improve the biological or the microbial activity, and all in all, just goes hand in hand to start improving the soil.
It's pretty impressive. So I've got an organic compost bin, Frank. I was imagining you just got 4 or 5 of them. Is that the...
Yeah. There's, I think there's 40 rows that are 400 metres long. There's probably about 8,000 tonnes of stuff sitting here at the moment, cooking away. So that's the other part that gets me up every morning, because I know if I don't, it'll get away from me. So I'm either I'm either spreading shit, talking shit, or just full of shit. So no, it's great stuff. We've got our own piggery as well, so it's a resource at the city. We grow the food, we send it to Melbourne. We should get all the shit back so as we can grow the food again and send it to Melbourne or whatever the city is. And it just should be a closed loop economy, and that's how, to me, it would be simple.
It makes too much sense, Frank. There must be some flaw there somewhere. I'll find it.
They're called politicians, but
well, I love it, mate. Let's keep going. You've sort of touched on it a little bit around weeds, but would that be the most difficult thing from a broadacre perspective on becoming organic, or is it the jabs you get at the pub on a Friday night from your neighbours?
A bit of both, but it would probably be the single biggest factor of when you do go to the pub and they say, well, how are you going to control weeds? And most of them have got resistant ryegrass, and you go, well, how are you going controlling your weeds with 10 litres of Roundup? And so, but I think it is the scary one that you've got to get your head around how you're going to manage weeds. And I don't think it matters whether it's from, you'll often hear an organic dairy farmer say, or someone thinking about dairy, well, how am I going to control the weeds in my channel, or how am I going to do X or Y? And I imagine a lot of the hort guys, they're mulching and they're doing that. And for us, on a broad acre, obviously mulching's not something, we're looking at cover cropping, but mechanical control of weeds and hopefully get them killed early and get the crop ahead of them. The aim of the game is to get the crop up, established, and it will be a competitor to the weed, and you just do it naturally.
Frank, there's so much to unpack there, but I want to unpack one thing you said, cover cropping. Can you unpack what that is and how that works?
Basically, there's a whole move in America and around the world, and some are doing it here, to have a living organism or living crop in your paddock 12 months of the year. So this is from a broadacre cropping program. So once we harvest the winter crop, we don't have irrigation, but then sow a crop that will grow through the summer, and it'll maintain. The Americans call it armour, or basically a cover of mulch on the ground. So you are effectively mulching your paddock. Roll it down, sow the next winter crop into it. So all that summer period, you can either feed stock as a cash income, but basically the main aim is to grow a carbon material to put back in the ground, but to keep the soil protected through our hot months.
Okay, and that also encourages
keep the soil cooler.
So soil cooler, water retention. Also, I believe if you've got nothing growing, carbon starts seeping away. Is that right as well?
I'm out of my league, on the education part of that, but I believe that's correct. And also, a lot of your biology will move away or die off. But if you've got healthy soil, your microbial fungi and the like will come back to life pretty quick. So, yeah. So basically, creating environment. It's a bit like us, I suppose. We don't eat for 6 weeks and do nothing for eat for 6 months and do nothing for 6 months, do we? So we've got to keep. I often say, a bit like winning a footy grand final, and all you do is drink beer and eat hamburgers for 4 days. By the following Wednesday, the body's telling you that you probably need a feed of veggies. And I call this compost, and that's like steak and 4 veggies. You're giving the paddock everything it needs, not just urea or not just DAP or not just chemical. You're trying to balance your paddock the same as we try and balance our diet.
I think it's just so interesting. I'm learning a lot. I've only just heard about this cover cropping concept the last couple of months, and it's just so much to unpack. And I guess that's what I like about what you're doing is that you're not just dwelling on what the potential problems are. You're going out and finding the solutions. Moving on, like there's solutions for stuff. You just got to get out there and have a crack. Frank,
and look, and it'll come with it because we don't get rain through our summer periods here. Although it seems to be changing, the cover crop will be difficult. And this is, I suppose, where people realise when they perhaps go crook that their organic produce is a little bit dearer. We're trying to refine it, but all of this comes. There is an added cost to growing the organic crop. I think actually in time when we get it right, it'll actually be cheaper than all the synthetic operations. But right at the minute, as we develop certain aspects and get these systems down pat. And Mother Nature will continue to be what Mother Nature is. One year it'll work, and the next year it'll not. She hasn't written the bloody 10 Commandments in stone. I'll give you the tip. Every year is a bloody different. She's a different beast.
That's it, Frank. You're a gambler at heart. It sounds like you love. That's what
farming is. Red 14 on the roulette table, mate.
Frank,
footy jumper.
So. We've gone through why you're an organic farmer, the methods, how you're minimising risk. What about at the end of the day? You've got a truckload of grain in your truck. Who wants it? Does anyone want it? What's the demand side for the stuff you're producing?
Well, when I first started, the bloke said, "Oh, you'll get this price for it, and you'll get that." And I'm like, shit, that's bloody too good to be true. And sure enough, it was a reasonably good year, and it was too good to be true. So we got half that price, but it was still better than the domestic market on the day. And look, since we've got into it, currently a lot of our grain is going to a company that's really pushing the organic dairy, which is ACM. Mm-hmm. They are doing a really good job of encouraging dairy farmers and helping them transition. So we currently selling our feed grain through them. Our oat and hay, it actually left the country. It got exported to Korea. So there's actually a fairly large market there. And for most broadacre guys, the oat and hay is a good weed control method. If you do have a paddock, we may as well export the weeds to someone else, and they're not our problem, especially overseas. No, it's mainly rye. So that's a good option. And then since then, hardly a week goes by, you don't get a phone call from someone saying, hey, can you grow this? I've got a market for this, but I can't source it. Or can you grow that? Or woolies want more berries, or someone wants more bloody barley. And I have 3 sons home with me, or in various ways, one full-time and 2 part-time sort of thing, but itching to come home. Our 2 biggest restrictors is land to develop and the capital to do it. So, be great for investors that want to get in this space. There is farmers out there that will do it and will grow it. we probably just don't need handouts, is the old saying. We just need a hand up. So any investors that want to make a good return on their buck, there's some really good opportunities. Once the transition is over, and in that 3 years, the demand it's currently increasing. The demand for produce is currently increasing at 15% per annum. There is talk that in the next 5 years it could increase by 500%. The Weekly Times this week is just three more dairy companies are screaming for more organic milk. So the dairy industry is going to need more food. So one of the big egg producers, the only reason they can't expand their things is they can't get a reliable source of grain to feed the chooks. Things like this. So I think one will all help the other. And again, it's the same with the compost. We've now got an organically certified compost. We've even that's very good for filming, Sam. But we've even got it in a pelletised bag, so that it's a form that can be used in an air seeder or transported a long distance. So we've gone down a lot of paths to make it a more.
Can you show that, Frank? Can you just put that up? Just a little.
So basically, it's a pellet like basically a pellet like you would see your.
Have to go higher, mate.
Can't quite get them out to you.
No, too small.
Technology's not.
They're a pellet. We get it.
Basically, a pellet like you'd see a chook pellet or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can just sprinkle a handful around the pot plant, or you can buy them in a bulk scale and put them under your hydroponics. Not hydroponics. Your veggies or whatever, and it's a non-dusty product. So. We're sort of trying to do our part there. Obviously, we're in business to make money too, like it's commercial, but it's we're trying to make it more available and more readily usable. So it'll be better to freight and more user-friendly.
Frank, this has been brilliant. I think there's one call to action for anyone watching who is excited by what Frank's saying. So in summary there are farmers out there like Frank, ready to go, doing great jobs, can scale operations, and that's why, again, Organic Regenerative Investment Cooperative is here, because we want to support more farmland acquisition that supports good organic farming. So if you're excited by this, we encourage you to reach out, and you want to invest, you can invest. We buy land which supports farmers such as Frank. So that's just a blatant plug to get in touch with what we're doing, because we want to expand what Frank's doing. We think it's awesome, and other organic farmers across the country. Frank, where can I buy a bag of those pellets?
Yeah, we're going online very shortly, but you can just email Elmore Compost and Organics.
Yep.
And we've got compost in bulk bags, in pellets. We've got wheat. We've got oat and hay. We've even had an inquiry for some little bales of organic straw from our wheat crop to grow mushies. So it's just, it's good. And the fella that rang me said I can't get it anywhere. So hopefully we're filling a hole, and it's looking really good.
Mate.
And back to the investment side of things. The other part of the investment is, don't worry just about saving what's already organic. We've got the methods in place. We've got markets for in conversion. We've still got our old markets for conventional, where we want to sort of probably specialise in is invest with Orico and buy land that's not organic. We've got a position. Like, a lot say, oh shit, I don't make any money while I'm converting. Well, we think we can do that transition successfully, broad acres. So the country can lock straight into its 3 years of preparation, and we go from there. So the more country we can turn to organic, probably in the end, the cheaper the products will become for the consumer, but then the more efficient we'll become as well. And I think there's good opportunity for us all to grow together.
Sounds like a win-win, Frank. Mate, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. I know you're very busy. Reach out to Frank if you want to find out more. But thanks very much, mate. We'll see you around, no doubt, very soon.
No worries, Sam. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for your attention. We hope you really enjoyed that interview. We are the Organic and Regenerative Investment Cooperative. We would love for you to sign up, become a member, follow us on all the social media accounts, connect with other like-minded people who want to see organic farming thrive across Australia. Please watch the other videos in our series as well, and share amongst your friends and family. But please do get in contact. We'd love to chat.